Hetepu, Namaste, Harun Nefer. This is Kasakma Keparu with another broadcast for you. And in this broadcast, I want to talk about working with interdimensional beings, and we're going to have some photograph of these beings, which is very interesting. But before I go into all of that, I'd like you to hit the like button on this video. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. And also, if you are not already a Patreon supporter, please consider doing so. You can support us for as little as $1 or $20 per month. You get exclusive access to a wealth of knowledge and documents. You get instructional videos on hypnotism. You get information on how to perform a ritual, how to invoke spirits, information on Qigong, and lessons on working with the oracles. And lastly, if you haven't started reading about my spiritual teachings, now is a good time to do so. And you can do that by clicking the links below, which will give you access to free ebooks that'll get you started on the spiritual journey. So those ebooks, again, are free. Just click on the links below and you can start out on your journey or take yourself to the next level. And please be sure to share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. So, Hatepu, how are you, my Magi's out there in the world as it is today, struggling, stressing, trying to survive and be here for the next year? I want to really get into this subject because I believe it's a very important subject, because we tend to think about how isolated and alone we are. And that's really not true. We perceive the world in one way. And because we perceive it in that way, we think that it is, number one, the correct way to perceive it. And number two, there is no other way. There is no other option. See, science is based on sensory input. This is the foundation of left brain thinking, which has trapped and imprisoned the planet. When you base your reality on sensory input through the five senses, then what you're doing is you ignoring information that is readily available to you. You see, the mind does not want to process so much information because it would be bogged down, it will be confused. So what the mind does, it only allows the bits of data into your sphere of awareness that it recognizes based on a premise. So everything else that comes after that reinforces that's funny, reinforces the premise and validates it. You guys, I just heard that as a spirit there just called my name. It was very interesting. Kind of freaked me out a bit too. I clearly heard that it was audible. I'm gonna rewind this video and then we'll get to seeing what that was about. Exciting times when you work with me. You get into all kinds of interesting stuff. Okay, so going back to what I was saying is, though, you, for efficiency's sake, you process data that you're comfortable with and that you're used to, and you negate everything that doesn't conform to that premise. This is the nature of how you're built. It's not a bad thing. It's just how it is for efficiency's sake. But the problem that we face is that we believe that what we're doing is the standard. Because the mind wants to streamline the process and not be bogged down with too much data, it then only accepts data that validates the paradigm. Now you have your scholars in academia who come along, and we know, based on the teachings and the things that I've talked about, that people who are left brain have problems with abstract thought. Okay. And when you have problems with abstract thought, you then retard the progress of the planet, meaning the planet cannot progress. And the reason why our planet, at one point in time back in antiquity, was able to reach unparalleled heights was because we were dual brain, integrated brain thinkers. Then along came the ruling elite who came up with a scheme to imprison the planet and control the planet. And they realized if they could get everybody on board with this idea of left brain thinking, then they could control the population because they would be the ones using both hemispheres of the brains. They would be the dual brain thinkers. And consequently, that is exactly what they have done. And by doing so, they have taken us off one linear space time continuum, rerouting us like a fork in a road to another space time continuum that's going to be met with doom and gloom, exactly what they want, where they are at the helm, they are on the top of the totem pole, pulling the strings in control, and probably at the height, controlling the planet's resources. That's important. You see, many people have theories of how ancient Kemet Egypt fell. Some say, which is true and valid, that no civilization lasts forever. There's the ebb and flow. That eventually a civilization, no matter how just, will decline. And I agree with that. But then there are other external forces that could bring down a society. And if you are a student of Greece or Rome, you will understand what brought those societies down. But Kemet, Egypt, was brought down simply because it was coastal in Northeast Africa. And what does that mean? Well, we know that there was abundance of trade with other nations, and that in spite of what you may see in mainstream media, Egypt or Kemet was not dominated by one race. It was a multicultural society. It had to be existing on the coast of Northeast Africa. You're going to get an eclectic mix of people as they come in, they do trading, they drop off their books at the Great Library of Alexandria. It was during those periods where Kemet would undergo wars. Most notably is with the Hyksos, very evil and domineering people. And which with every incursion, Kemet or Egypt became weaker and weaker until it was ripe for the taking by the Arabs, and then consequently came Western European man. But the way they were able to conquer Egypt was to control the flow of resources, to dominate the coastal cities. Do you understand? This is the lifeblood of any civilization, commerce. Now, when that began to happen, specifically what I mean by that is when the control of trade was taken from the power structure of the ancient Kemetic people to foreigners, thus the decline of Kemet began culturally, morally, technologically, because the Kemetic people were no longer in charge of trade. So this is very important for you to understand as we dive deeper into this whole idea of the interdimensional beings. Now, the I Ching, the great oracle of Tuti, has one of the most difficult hexagrams to interpret. It is the 50th hexagram, which is the symbol of the cauldron. And the cauldron is, those who study Wicca know that you throw all kinds of items in the cauldron to come up with a incantation or what have you. The I Ching equated this to the cultural structure of a nation. And the nation would either flourish or decline based on what was thrown into the cauldron. When we look at the world around us from an observational perspective, we don't understand that there are forces controlling life that are beyond our perception. Western man believes that there is no external metaphysical force dictating the day-to-day operation of our civilization. But the ancient Kemetic people knew that this was so, as they coined the frame or the phrase, as above, so below. And I've talked a little bit about this when I had mentioned in previous videos about the template reality. See, in order for this reality to exist, there had to be some type of structure, design, skeleton for which the society itself would be built. You don't just walk up to a building and you start laying bricks. No, you have your steel, that the steel that gives you the frame of the building, and then you start laying in the bricks. Western man thinks there only are the bricks. She does not see that there has to be a template from which this reality is created. Do you understand what I'm saying? In fact, our ancient ancestors, the ancient Kemetic people, would look at you side-eyed, and they would actually probably think you're insane to believe that the physical reality on this fourth dimensional plane that we interact with has no metaphysical component. They probably would kick you out of Kemet for even entertaining the thought that all that there is what you see before you. You're talking about people who were masters of dual brain thinking. When you are a master of dual brain thinking and understand abstract concepts, and you're using all of your intelligences because you can categorize the different intelligences, such as the ability to synthesize, the ability to segregate, the ability to congregate. These are intelligences, faculties, that when operating at their peak proficiency, you then become what we call as a genius. And we know one of the geniuses of ancient Kemet was Imhotep. In fact, he was known as a multi-genius whose knowledge went far beyond Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and more. At this juncture in our civilization, we, if we were kept on the right space-time continuum, would be colonizing planets by now. But the ruling elite has done such a wonderful clandestine job in imprisoning the planet that progress is almost non-existent. I want you to understand that clearly, because in terms of national security, this is the biggest kept secret. That when you deal and contend with it, you can be victorious without striking a blow. You have people who lack intelligence because that's what the ruling elite wants to do, is that they don't want an educated population. They want a population that's deaf, dumb, and blind. And to get there, all you need to do is stay polarized in left brain thinking. Now, I'm not vilifying left brain thinking because I believe it's important and it has its place. Secker tells us a place for everything and everything in its place. That is how order prevails. Now, if all of you magi's really want to take your knowledge to the next level, when you hear people talk about ending racism, ending sexism, by using tolerance, by blah, 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 you must bring home the point to them that they are speaking about a technique or result that's ineffective and is missing the mark greatly. You see, because to eliminate racism and prejudice and sexism and political partisanship and all those other isms, all one needs to do is shift your energy vibration from left to whole brain thinking. And this was the story of Osir and Aset. That was the basis of that story, of merging the left and the right hemispheres of the brain so that Haru or Horus could be victorious. I see so many people who want to claim to be experts on Kemet or Egypt and going out there and teaching or having these expeditions to look. They would take people to Kemet to look at the pyramids, and then they would teach them or interpret the Medunetta. Nothing wrong with that, but they're not See, not only are they not scholars, but they're just repeating the mistakes. In other words, if I fly you to Kemet right now and I walk through the ancient ruins, the temples, and start pointing out this is Hatshepsut, this is Thoth, this is Osir here with his sister, you know, that is just bombarding you with facts, information. But I'm not really interpreting anything or giving you insight into anything. I go up, it's equivalent to me walking into a room with a group of people and written on the wall is the number 22 in big black lettering that you can't even miss it. And I look back at the group that has come in with me and I say, this number is 22. Duh. Well, that is what you have here when you go on these expeditions, to have someone take you around and try to interpret the Metuneta. They're just serving you up information. You see, real learning or accelerated learning or super learning comes from nurturing the faculties within you. It doesn't come from reading a bunch of books and be proficient at regurgitating information. And most times that we have seen individuals doing that, I often label them as having verbal diarrhea. They cannot shut up. They're very good at telling you dates, facts, names. But then when you ask them to get deeper into the information and to dissect it, they cannot do that. See, the left hemisphere of the brain is great for the regurgitation of facts. It is horrible, horrible at substance. because it doesn't know how to do that. It cannot. When you are operating primarily from a segregative thought process, this means and tells me that you don't understand synthesis. And when you don't understand synthesis, you cannot in any way bring people together to live harmoniously, because you would have to have that faculty within you to be able to do that. And if you're negating that faculty to focus primarily on segregative thought process, then you are a problem. And this is what most of our people are facing today. See, I fingered this problem years ago when great men like Dr. John Henry Clark and Dr. Benjamin, Dr. Smalls, check out the Diop. And I said to these individuals, it is great that you're exposing the community to this wealth of knowledge, but you are doing no better than the very people you're criticizing. You see, you're criticizing Western European men and women for teaching about Kemet and leaving out the fact that it was a Black African civilization. True. But if you're not able to dig deeper into the material, decipher it, and bring it to a way that's meaningful and impactful, then you're not doing anything. And I see just from observation of today's world how their methods were ineffective. They have not stand the test of time, because what they were doing was just repeating the status quo. I will stand at the head of the classroom. I will speak verbally, left brain attribute, to convey facts and information. That's not learning. That's not teaching. I'm sorry. And yet, our entire education system, and that of higher learning as well, is predicated upon this. This is why ancient Kemetic people were experiential, meaning that they needed to experience it to fully grasp and understand it, not to be informed about it. Big difference. And because of this being trapped in left brain segregated thought process, we cannot postulate the idea of alternate realms, of interdimensional beings, because that information is not presented to us in a concrete fashion, so we do not take it as legitimate or real. And you match that with the ego. Freud tells us about the id, the ego, and the superego. You match that with the ego, then you have a very ignorant, stuck up person. There's nothing worse than a person who's ignorant and has an ego about being ignorant. There was one young gentleman, actually it was two, I was speaking with online this morning. I got up around 6 a.m., started speaking to them, and I could say no more, that they were just very ignorant. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but they were just very, very ignorant. And when you are so far gone like that, you don't even recognize truth when it comes to you. See, some of us are not that gone, and we know it truth when we see it. Elijah Muhammad, teacher of Malcolm X, had brought the example to Malcolm about the glass. And it was dirty water. And people were drinking it, thinking it was clean water, thinking it was good. It's only when you introduce the clean water that you can see the stark difference. Because of this being trapped in left brain thinking, We have been conditioned or programmed to fear anything that doesn't conform to that. We are conditioned to say those things that are of the metaphysical are of the devil. Do you understand what I'm saying? See, in Kemet, speaking with spirits or the deceased or ETs were it was a natural thing, was nothing extraordinary, just very natural as breathing for them. But when the edict came down to transition the planet from a moon cult to a solar cult, is when the decline of civilization began. And this happened around 325 AD with the Roman Emperor Constantine, removing the importance of Mary to place above Mary Jesus. Mary being the feminine aspect, the yin, the moon cult, Jesus being the sun cult. When you really begin to understand reality, then you start to grasp the idea that there has to be something beyond our senses controlling things and keeping things in order. What are they? Well, they are your interdimensional beings. And they are not the same as spirits. Make no mistake, totally different. These interdimensional beings have a very important role into upholding reality, 4D realm, to ensure it flourishes. I've been watching a lot of videos on crabs, really getting into understanding the sea world. And people think like a shark or a crab is evil or dangerous. That is not true. It serves its function. See, when you eat crabs, you're eating a bottom feeder. Its role, as created by Neter or Nebuchadnezzar, Lord of all, is to clean the ocean floor by eating dirt and all kinds of other disgusting things. A bottom feeder. That's its role. That's what it was created to do. And when you're working with these interdimensional beings, and you will work with them, you will understand that they all were created for a specific role, and they must fulfill that role for the mechanism or the machine to operate properly. This notion I said of good and bad was created because who you are is a divine being. You're God man, God woman. So by right, you do right. You do ma'at. African people have always known that these different realms, these different beings exist. We've known this. It has taken many, many years for science to catch up and to even consider the idea. You follow me? So, as magicians, as magi's, I want you to understand that you need to purge yourself of the idea of these things being evil, malevolent, hostile. I just heard a clear, audible voice of something that called my name. I know it's a spirit. I know not to freak out. But a neophyte would freak out and probably could not handle something like that. Now, when individuals talk about, oh, there's no alternate dimensions, there's none of that, there's no beings out there, they speak from a place of ignorance. Because you see, they cannot see. You can only see within a small range of light. In fact, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the spectrums that we can perceive and why that's so very, very important. And let me see if I can just share my screen with you. So here, it's really, really interesting article here. So here it says, as you can see, the visible portion makes up an incredibly small fraction of the total electromagnetic spectrum. Less than 1% of all light that reaches us is in the visible spectrum. Less than 1%. Take note of that, Magi's. By most estimate, it comes out to about 0.0035 percentage of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So because the human eye is incredibly limited in its range, we see only that one tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. We see amazingly well within that tiny band, but beyond that, nothing. If we could see all the wavelengths, the night sky would be almost as bright as a daytime sky. Almost, because the daytime would be 0.0035 percentage brighter. So what this article is clearly telling us is that humans have a very, very narrow range of the spectrum of light that we can see. That range increases when you're dealing with animals like dogs and cats who can see more than that 1%. You understand what I'm saying? Now, I mentioned that these interdimensional beings are not spirits, and you should not treat them as such because they serve a very specific purpose. Someone had mentioned to me, well, in order to see these beings, I would need DMT and ayahuasca, and I have no means to acquire those herbs or medicines. And I replied by saying that you don't need those to see the interdimensional beings, although it would help you if you had access to that. But you can still see them and interact with them and talk with them. You see, for these beings, they understand who you are, but you don't understand who you are. These interdimensional beings look at you and they know that you are God, that you are a divine being. They clearly recognize that. You do not. Therefore, you don't have dominion over them where you should, because you give up your position as king, queen. So let's go deeper into this before we start breaking things down and really look at images and things of that nature. Okay. Um, find the best video for you guys to see. This is David Icke, who really kind of pioneered this idea in the New Age community by telling people that the reason you cannot see what's manipulating the planet behind the scenes is because it is outside the range or spectrum of visible light that we can see. So let's go. Let me share my screen. Let's go to that video because I think it's very, very interesting.
The vast majority of people who over the last few years have started investigating this, they will not go any further. They will not go any further because A, their belief systems won't let them, often their religious belief system, but also they are fearing what other people will think about them if they go into some of these areas I'm going to go into now. What people make of it is up to them. So yes, of course, on one level, it does manifest as dark suits sitting around a table discussing the next move. But that's still the play-out world of this conspiracy. It's not its origin. It goes beyond them into the advisors in the shadows, the Mandelsons in this country. Peter Mandelson, if he's not manipulating, he gets withdrawal symptoms, that man. And into the Rahm Emanuels, ditto, in America, the controller, handler of Barack Obama. It goes into deeper levels, beyond them, deep in the hidden secret society network. And eventually, it goes out of this dimension. And that's where this whole thing is really coming from. Beyond the frequency range of visible light. And it involves non-human entities. Some of them people call the greys. The main ones, I would say, and have been saying for a long, long time, take a reptilian form. And they operate outside visible light, and they manipulate this reality through bloodlines, interbreeding bloodlines that I'll come to. And we call them the Illuminati families. We operate with invisible light, but outside of that, sharing the same space, is infinite other worlds and realities. So yes, it's not just people sitting around a table somewhere in the world discussing the next move. There's the level where we see this unfolding in the news and what have you. Then there's this other dimensional, non-human level, and the rabbit hole doesn't end there. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And the deeper you go into the rabbit hole, the more we understand what the game is, the more we can change the game. And if a so-called UFO comes into this reality, it just seems to appear out of flipping nowhere. Because what it's done, it hasn't actually come in, it just changed its vibrational state to resonate with invisible light, and it's like, it came out of nowhere. And then how often you see it? Honestly, mate, there was this bloody UFO, and it disappeared just in front of my eyes. You go, what are you on, mate? You on the pop or what? What it's done is increased its vibrational resonance to go beyond on visible light. Therefore, to the observer, it disappears. It doesn't disappear at all. It's left visible light.
Alrighty, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of that so you can understand what the message I'm trying to convey. I don't agree with everything David Icke is talking about, but I do agree in the sense that they are there behind the curtain manipulating things. Now, it was only fairly recent that a scientist came along who had claimed to be able to photograph these dimensional beings, and his name was Daniel Nemes. So let's take a look at that and some of the images he has for these beings, and let's discuss if it's real or a hoax. Hold on. So that's Daniel right there. Well, make it bigger. All right. Scientist claims his new technology visualizes multidimensional beings. Image on the right is an example of a multidimensional being. As a teenager, Daniel Nemes has had a passion for science and astronomy, so it was no surprise when his vocation took him into the field of science. Today, Nemes is both a scientist and inventor in Colombia, with him claiming he has a technology to photograph multidimensional beings. Neem said that his interests in the multidimensional universe began after a magazine article attracted his attention about the dark matter of the universe. He then came up with the idea of devising technology through optical experiments along with mathematical calculations that would allow him to take images of multidimensional beings. Scientists invented technology superior to any other form of image capturing. Nemes knew about the technology out there for capturing images, such as black light, infrared, ultraviolet, and such. However, he went one better and found a way of capturing the unknown that was far superior. The name, the technology he invented, is Ergo Vision. Yeah, I'm probably chopping that name up. According to MysteriousTimes.com, Nemes combines special lenses along with sunlight from Mother Nature and screens that are ultra sensitive that he invented himself. With his invention, Nemes claims that he can capture images that are of unknown origin. The images come from other planes and show multidimensional beings. NASA and other companies must surely want to get their hands on such technology, but Neem said he has not exposed his invention, but he did try to make the scientific community aware of its existence. Neems also claims that the media has silenced his discovery and the images that he claims to have taken using his technology. Neems published thousands of images on social media showing unknown beings. Neems has published many images through Facebook and revealed that since 2015, he posted more than 1,000 photos to his page. The scientist claims to have had a great deal of rejection and many insults come his way with disbelief of the images. He said, the only way I have to publicize my invention and the captures are by Facebook since 2015, have posted 1,000 photos of my Facebook. Did I read that right? Let me try that again. He said, the only way I have to publicize my invention and the captures are by Facebook since 2015. I have posted 1,000 photos on my Facebook. When I started to publish my images on my social network, I had a lot of rejection. It was hard and even insults toward me. Fortunately, my images are now more known. And when I post on my Facebook or any other groups, it's rare to receive disqualification or insults. Bam! All right. So there's a video here. Let's watch a little bit of this video. I think it'll be interesting for us to get more insight.
Daniel Nemes, scientist and inventor, originally from Spain but residing in Colombia. Since he was 14 years old, he became interested in astronomy and science. He was a member of the Astronomical Group of Madrid, Spain. He says that the project started when he read an article in a magazine about the dark matter of the universe, and the multidimensional universe momentarily interested him and called attention, so he had the initiative to perform mathematical calculations and optical experiments to be able to capture images of the beyond. He discovered a method of capturing far superior to infrared, ultraviolet, black light, video camera with TV without antenna, etc. And that method I call energy vision. I use special lenses, ultra-sensitive screens of his invention, and above all sunlight. The images that he captures are of unknown origin. He explains that his theory is that they are images of other planes. However, he says he has not traveled to other places to expose the invention. He has tried to make known to the scientific community and only answered a scientific body of the USA, and in a rude way. The media have ignored and silenced the discovery along with the images captured. Daniel Nemes says, the only way I have to publicize my invention and the captures are by Facebook. Since 2015 I have posted 1,000 photos on my Facebook. When I started to publish my images on my social network I had a lot of rejection. It was very hard and even insults towards me. Fortunately my images are now more known and when I post on my Facebook or in other groups it is rare to receive a disqualification or insult. Judge for yourself the following images. The note is at the discretion of each person.
All right. Let's stop right there, my Magi's. For it is test time. Test time. Okay, Magi's, you ready? How do we know that these images that he said he has taken is real or real interdimensional beings? There is a way for us Magi's to verify that. What is that way, Magi's? Put it in the chat box there. Tell me. Because you see, as Magi's, we are in a very unique position. That position is we can tell right away truth. Can somebody tell me? How do we, what is the measure of truth? There we go. On God got it. Go to the oracle. Yes. Exactamundo. That is the truth. Because only God can tell us. And there's another way that we can tell, which is experiential. What is that called? Am I saying that right? Experiential. Empirical. Sorry, empirical. No, experiential works. Empirical. Yeah. Um, oh, you Magi's, you're on point today. All right. But there's another way we can validate this. And that way is that those of us who have gone on that trip using DMT and ayahuasca have seen these beings because we have gone, our consciousness has gone to their realm. So if you have the opportunity, if you had that opportunity, if you went there, then you could probably validate Daniel's photographs or not. I personally have not taken ayahuasca or DMT, so I would not be able to tell you based on my own experience if those things are real. But I have gone to these other realms and I have interacted with these beings. And based on that interaction, I can tell you, as far as I am concerned, and as far as what I have witnessed and experienced, that these images are 100% legit. No fabrication. These are real images of interdimensional beings. Some look a little bit disturbing, but nonetheless interesting. Now, let's talk a little bit about these beings, what they do, and our relationship to them, because I think it's very important. As I had started out saying that we have to get into an understanding of we must not fear these things. It's very, very important. No matter how so-called horrific they may look. You see, Tahuti tells us nothing has a quality in and of itself. So what you may think looks ugly, menacing, or scary really is not. You know, but mainstream propaganda machine wants you to be afraid. Why? You see, because they don't want you working with these beings, because these beings are in charge of controlling our 4D reality. They are the workers. They are the construction men and women with the hard hats. If it were not for these interdimensional beings, we would not be experiencing this reality, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because you may have one being, for example, whose sole job is to make sure that the moon, um, the moon is spinning at a certain pace. That's his job. There are other beings who make sure that there are clouds in the sky. This is how they operate. They have a form, they have a function. So to look at them and fear them is incorrect. When you start working with these beings, what they will do is help you, because you see, they are outside the realm of time space. It's almost like they're in 5D, but they're not quite in 5D. You see, they can step outside the space time continuum and observe all probabilities or all possibilities. And then in observing all of these things, they can bring that knowledge to you as a gift. Hey, Kasank, 3 months from now, you are going to have your mate is going to come down with, you know, a terminally ill disease. Be prepared for it. We will work to help to bring her back into balance and health. When you build that relationship and foundation with them, well, the one thing you're going to find out is very interesting about them is they're very friendly. They're very open and receptive when you get into their realm. I have traveled to many different realms, and I have never once had a being kick me out or treated me disrespectfully. And I've always acted with a certain amount of decorum because I knew I was a guest in their house. And it's not, let me just say it this way. It's not a frightening experience when you travel to their realm and start to interact with them. I've said this many times. These beings can see into the depths of who you really are, past the skin color, um, past the idea of who you think you are. They communicate directly with your soul. And it's a wonderful form of communication because there's no prejudice behind it. They don't bring that baggage to the table. The I Ching, the 61st hexagram, talks about inner truth, that the way you can transform people and communicate with people is to getting to the heart of the matter of who and what they are. And once you have formed that basis, then you can move on to having a lasting relationship. So, and one thing that we have to keep in mind too is that they're natural. They're a natural part of our ecology. So there's no reason to be afraid. And in fact, working with them will bring you increase and abundance. You see, the ruling elite have already tapped into this source of power, and they've made contacts with very evil entities and spirits who they're getting knowledge on and wisdom from. And then they're using that information to the detriment of humanity. So be aware of that. And these beings can offer you protection, guidance, love, light, but it's up to you to take that step. So, Michael, that's exactly right. I'm glad you put that there, Michael. So, for those who don't have DMT or ayahuasca, the way you would interact with these beings is through deep, deep, deep meditation. Trance state will get you there into their plane, their level of existence. And the more you do it, the longer you can stay, the longer you can interact with them. And to be quite honest, it's a fun experience. I've had a lot of fun dealing with them. Some can be very playful, mischievous, some can be very serious, but they're not out to harm you in any way, shape, or form. It is the basis of the interaction has always been love. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I'm glad that Daniel has created this technology that allows us to photograph these beings to bring evidence. But I'll tell you, the way our society is structured today, there's no matter how much evidence you bring, you could bring a dimensions, interdimensional being and sit him on a table and say, "See, here he exists," and Western academia will still deny it. They'll still deny it. My beloved, I'm bringing to you a power that is tremendous. You see, when I first got into magic, and I'm going to conclude this, I would see individuals in Yoruba, Santeria, Kemetic, who would claim to carry the deity, who would claim to speak with spirits. But when you put them to the test, it's all in their imagination. I'm not kidding you. It's in their imagination. One girl in priesthood told me, she said, she was trying to make contact with Harukahuti, God Harukahuti. I said, "Well, did you?" She goes, "No, I didn't." That is because you're not following the right teacher who is not giving you the right process by which to go about things. And I spoke about this not too long ago when I was hinting at creating an altar for your ancestors and working with them or speaking to God. How these things are not supposed to be one-way conversations. There should be no question. Let me give you an example. Twice during this broadcast, I heard an audible voice, and I know what that is. See, there's no guesswork here. You get physical evidence. When you're working with real magic, you get real results. But unfortunately, in the magical community or in the New Age community, many folks are not following the right process and they gain nothing out of the experience. For example, I spoke with a woman real briefly about what was it, past life hypnosis, right? Regression hypnosis. And I asked her, because she had went to an hypnotherapist and had it done. And I asked her about the experience, and I told her, I said, I can do that for you. And she said the experience that she got, it didn't really work and nothing really happened. So it kind of tainted or left a bad taste in her mouth about regressive hypnosis for experiencing past lives. Well, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I told her specifically, I said, in life, you have good doctors, you have bad doctors. You have good basketball players, you have bad basketball players. You have good fighters like Muhammad Ali, and you have bad fighters. So you just went to a bad hypnotherapist, but don't give up. I searched for many years to find a priesthood that I could feel welcome at, that was really practicing something, and it wasn't just about show. And I'm going to do a broadcast on this week. You see, there's a technique that they call carrying the deity. That means the deity is you are invoking the deity, and the deity is possessing you. So when I would go to different priest temple, the temples and things and whatnot, and I would see like the woman should be putting the powder on her face. She would try to go into trance so that she can carry the deity. And consequently, it was really just her imagination. Nothing was really happening. You see, because you're not following the right process. You're not doing things the right way. If you really want to carry the deity or to be possessed by the spirit, you're going to have to get into deep sleep deprivation. You're going to have to be stimulating certain chakra points or meridians in the body. You're going to have to start working with certain special herbs and incense that can take your consciousness out of the waking state. You're going to have to fast. And these things take practice and take time. It's not that easy. And then when you do all of these things, you're still not done. You have got to summon the spirit so it can come inside of you and take control of you. But you then must have a safety mechanism. You must have an agreement. You tell the spirit, well, you can only possess me for 24 hours. After that point, you must leave. If you don't make that agreement, that person is going to stay, or that spiritual entity is going to stay and cause havoc in your life. You see what I'm saying? So there's a real process behind magic. And like its namesake, magic, the real techniques are only held by a select few group of teachers. And the majority of the population who claim to practice magic are using such a watered down version that it's ridiculous. You understand what I'm saying? And it gives us a bad name because then people go out there and say, Oh, that magic stuff doesn't work. I saw it. I tried it. It doesn't work. And can you blame them? The stuff works. It works. But we've got to get these people who are practicing it in the incorrect way. We have to get these people to stop talking about it because they're the ones that are spreading the wrong information and demonstrating the wrong techniques. I hope you understand what I mean by this. Because when done right, this stuff is powerful. It's effective. When done right, when you invoke a spirit, the first time you see a spirit, you should be scared shitless. That's a natural reaction. That means you did something right. You know what I mean? And then after that process, you'll get used to it. You will be as afraid. I still get scared at certain things when I'm venturing off into new territory. Some things still startle me. You know, when you come into my abode, you're going to see paranormal activity. You're going to hear spirits' voices. They will call you by name. Yes, they will know your name. You'll walk in. You will see things move. You will feel energy in the electromagnetic sphere. This is because I'm doing something right. If I walk into your home, Magi's, and I don't feel weird or there's nothing really going on there, then you're not practicing it. You're not doing anything. See, when you're doing this is why I talk about not doing rituals or stuff in the bedroom because you need to get to sleep. But when I come into your house, I should be subjected to some paranormal stuff, like big time. Stuff should be happening because when you're working, you open that stargate, that gateway to the other realm, and things will start to come in, and you'll be able to work with them and make agreements with them and send them out on missions. I've always said this, to these people out here who well intended, they want to end racism. And I said, well, do you realize that there are these beings that exist on different planes of existence that are willing to help us? But it's a two-step process. Number one, you got to believe that they exist. And number two, you got to go meet them halfway. You have to go into their environment and start building that relationship and that rapport to where they'll do you favors. Let me say this again. The ruling elite is already in contact with these interdimensional beings, receiving guidance and information and wisdom from these interdimensional beings. It is us, the general population, that is so deaf, dumb, and blind, we don't believe it's possible. We don't believe it even exists, these other realms, because the ruling elite was so smart in creating and immersing us in left brain thinking to where we just can't consider any other way of thinking. It's like the definition of madness is to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. How many times are you going to elect the president who's going to talk about change? Change. Vote for me. I'm going to change everything. And you vote for him, does nothing. Where's the change? Still the status quo, same thing. You know what I'm saying? So get busy, Magi's, please. And I can't say it any other way. You don't realize how much power you have. You don't realize what you can do. You really don't. Because if you did, you would throw away all conventional means to make a change in your life, such as, oh, I gotta go out and get a better job. Oh, I've got to go apartment hunting. You would then rely on magic. I need an apartment, put a ritual together. I want that that girl who looks beautiful, dark chocolate black or whatever. I want her. Let me do a love spell. You know, I'm just saying, it's an example. You know, I want a good looking man like Kassank. What can I do? I'll spike his drink with rupee. No, I'm just kidding. That's not even funny. I'm sorry. But you get my point. So start relying on that power, that God power within you. You have friends. You got a posse. And they're waiting to make contact with you. And they're waiting to converse. So, with that said, my magi's, number one, there's some housekeeping. If you haven't gotten your Kemetic name, get your Kemetic name. Very important because that's going to start you out on a new path in life because your Kemetic name is your mantra. Okay, it's your mantra. It's going to give you power, great power. And also, um, don't forget to, if you're in a position, Hetepu, Pamela Williams, how are you? Um, don't forget to donate to the channel. Very important. Your donations are always appreciated. And one thing I want to just say, not that I are pushing or twisting anybody's arms, but I've made Patreon very affordable at $1 a month. There's no reason why all of my subs, my subscribers, shouldn't be a Patreon supporters. You know what I'm saying? It's really $1 a month is so inexpensive in comparison to the wealth of knowledge that you're going to get from me. So take advantage of that because there'll come a point where we won't have that tier level and we will get rid of it. But as of now, it stays in place and you're just going to get so much really cool information from being a supporter. So do it today. Any questions, my Magi's, before I close out? Any questions? No. Okay, I think we're good. We're good. We're good. Um, and I think I mentioned this. Let me see if I mentioned this that on Patreon, if you are a $20 Patreon supporter, you get your oracle readings free. Okay. Regular price is $85 per oracle reading. If you are a $20 Patreon supporter, you'll get those free. That's just a benefit to say thank you for being a supporter. Um, so, any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank you all for jumping in here a little late tonight. It's insightful as always. This is Kasank Maat Keperu, son of Maat and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next broadcast, I'm in Ra.